Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome, everyone, to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This week, by the way, is a milestone. We are hitting episode 300. I'm going to cue the confetti here, actually. Episode 300, by the way, of the show. I got to say, this has been, it's a lot of fun. It's not something that I just started and, kind of left as is. Like, yeah, maybe I left certain parts longer than they really should have been. But we're going to talk about our process a little bit later on in the show. But I want to thank you for joining us. And for those of you who always stick with us, we really appreciate that. This week, by the way, we're going to be talking about Facebook group experts. And, the guy that started the show with, Vincent Orlek, like when he and I started this quite a number of years ago, like he's always been, he always talked about there are really no experts at things. And so we're going to be talking about Facebook group experts conveniently today. And so it's actually going to be a good show. And we're going to be talking about that. We've got some YouTube Shorts updates, some Twitter updates and whatnot. But first, I want to bring on Dorien here. And I'm intrigued to see what she's got. Dorien, I'm going to bring on Sarah first, actually. Sarah's got some sunglasses on. How we doing, Sarah? Oh, and you're muted, by the way.
Happy 300. Yay. It's important to celebrate these milestones. Come on. I know that you're a humble guy, Christian, but this is a big deal because not many people get to 300 and some are on their way. And I'm wearing these in honor of our special guest, Dorien Morin-van.
Hold on. So, you guys, y'all are good. So
happy 300th episode. Woohoo!
Look at this. And by the way, I got to say thank you. And, it's awesome, by the way, having both of you on here, because I know and we're going to talk about this in a bit about the process of the show, things like that. But I know, Dorien, you've been on quite a bit. And I know, Sarah, you came on as my new co-host, actually, just recently. And obviously, I think the tie-in was, Dorien, you introduced Sarah to me as a guest. And then we said, hey, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. And then we wanted to bring her on. And I got to say, I've been really excited with all the comments and the feedback that everybody's been giving me. A lot of people give it to me offline. And they've said, hey, they really like, for example, Sarah, they like having you co-host with me. So I want to thank both of you.
Hey, you're welcome. And I'm you're very kind, not to mention that I proposed Sarah be your guest when I flaked out and I forgot I was going to be the guest.
Okay, it's okay. Hey, here's the thing. That's the thing with live streaming. Over the years, it's one of those things where you don't always you could plan the show out. For example, I think, Sarah, we're planned out all the way through the beginning of October.
Yeah.
And or booked, I should say. And we know that there might be a guest that does not, has something come up, for example, or the calendar, or something, gets mixed up. So it's not a big deal. That's the thing about live streaming is you kind of have to roll with the punches. So if, for example, somebody doesn't, if they can't make a show, for example, and it's last minute, don't I guess the key thing is don't panic. Big deal. Okay, so they can't make the show. So then guess what? Sarah and this is a good reason, by the way, to have a co-host. This way, Sarah and I can talk about the topics. We're familiar with the show, the format, all that sort of stuff. It may not be the longest show that we would normally do, but we're at least still able to do the show. So fantastic. So Sarah, I'm turning it over to you. Let's talk about Let's talk about what's new this week. Actually.
What's new this week? So we are going to keep doing the news, the social media news this week, even though it is 300, magic 300. But let's start with Facebook group experts. And it's actually great that we have Dorien here because Dorien manages several communities. And she's using these new tools just this week to elevate group members to sort of the expert level. And this is where group admins can ask experts to host Q&As, share info, answer questions, host a live audio room. Yes, we've been talking about it a lot, and I know everybody has heard me wax on about how excited I am to have Facebook Live audio in groups. The other thing that Facebook is doing is giving the admins a chance to search for these experts too and invite them into the group. So we have a little bit of a screenshot here, but I just want to ask Dorien, how is this going for you?
Well,
you just started, right?
Yeah. So we, the large community that I'm in, we've just started the process of trying to identify who we want to identify as the experts. But the example that I saw this week, and I went in to look at it, was Mark Zuckerberg is a member of a dog group. He has this cool dog, and he went on as an expert guest in the group. He did a Q&A, and people got to talk to him and ask questions, and it kind of showed how it worked. It's called a power admin as a group admin. So we get some of the things that are going on in groups. We don't always get advance notice of what's coming, but we get the first notification, hey, this is here kind of thing. And so somebody shared that whole process, what it was like to get him in their group and what he talked about. So in our group, we have a group of nearly 50,000. We're like 100 people away from 50,000 of social media managers. So what we're thinking about doing is identifying the experts on different topics and then hosting Q&As or webinars that way. We have to be careful, of course, because we're a brand and we are selling a product. So, when you invite, experts in, you want to make sure that they're on the same thinking and the same level of how they do social media, especially in social media, how they connect themselves. So we're kind of filling it out a little bit, but it's cool because they will get the label expert in the group. It'll say next to their name, you know how you have badges. So they will get that. And then, so we're definitely looking to start educating in that group in a different way. We of course have used, units before, which, are now guides. And, we've tried a lot of different things. We've done live streaming in the group. But the most successful feature so far in the group to get attention is the Q&A. So being able to invite an expert to do a Q&A instead of it being me, because right now, because I'm the main administrator, when I do a Q&A, it gets pushed to a lot of our members, which is really the feature that I get the most reach with. So to then be able to use this for somebody else is very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great to have that badging because there's times where I'm in group conversations and the admins haven't jumped in yet. And I kind of wonder, who are these yahoos and where are they getting their information? Because this is just not right at all. So, yeah, I think it's
one of the features we're hoping to get in groups is badges that we can make. Right. So right now they're labeled by Facebook. These are the, 10 labels you can choose, and so we're hoping, because we at Social Media Pro, we have a certification program. We would love to have people get a badge that's certified, right? Or student, or, for us to create the label. So, fingers crossed, sometime soon that will be coming out. We're hoping for a lot more features, but I do know, and I'm really excited that Facebook has been concentrating for quite a while on Facebook groups, and they're really investing time, money, effort in making them better. They're really listening to these power admins. They're really listening to what we need, what we're looking for. Like one of the newest feature that we love is what's that one that we have been using? Approval. Well, we were using post approval, and then we were using keyword alerts, but now you can even have alerts set on when people edit a post. That's like the newest thing I just discovered. So because people go into a group, right, and they say, oh, I have a question about XYZ. You approve it, and then they totally edit the post, and now it's a promotional post. So now you can put on an alert to get it approved before it goes out. So those kind of things, like they're really working with the admins to make it work for them.
And go ahead, Christian.
I was gonna say, I gotta say the one feature that I really like, and I want to bring this up. You mentioned this a second ago, Doreen, is the Q&A feature.
Yeah.
Like I like this because it's not just a standard post that somebody makes with the tiny little, indication of like what that person's level is, for example, as a group expert. But I like the fact now that it actually is putting the spotlight on these users, in your group, the people who are actually making your group what it is. Because it's not just like, oh, it's this big brand that started it. It's the people in the group that really make it, the most important part, like why people stick around, why they come back, why they tell their friends about it, all that sort of stuff. So
well, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you put this kind of question out, because what happens is it's like a stacked bunch of cards. So you add the first card is you with a picture of you with a question, and then when people answer, it's like cards, so you can swipe through. And if you're not in a group and you see this, you're, like then when you enter a group, you're like, people ask me every time I do a Q&A, they're like, how do you get this feature? I'm like, it's in a group. You have to be an admin and then you get this feature. But it's super, super cool. And it looks nice because as people start commenting on comments, like it's a Q and then there's an answer and then there's another answer and there's a follow-up question, those cards just kind of swipe through, and it's really visually pleasing, and it encourages engagement, which is really, like I said, gives me the best reach in my groups when I do the Q&As.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's something that I was going to mention, is that it's got this gamification to it, right? It's got this beautiful user interface, things swipe around and move around. I've seen these cards pop up occasionally over the last couple of months. But I have to say, I don't know about you two, but my personal Facebook feed has been filled with groups. It's all groups and a lot of page posts too. I'm right now anyway. I'm seeing fewer and fewer from people, and far more from the groups that I'm a part of. Which means I engage with them more. Which means that I see them more. Right? The self-fulfilling prophecy there.
The other part to all that is that like it really shouldn't matter if it's a profile or a page or a group posting, because again, people go there for. Like they go to engage, get help with things and whatnot. So I like the idea of them bringing, like, for example, more group content up, because for example, like somebody, like it's almost like different tiers. Like if I go and I engage with like just Sarah and Doreen's post, for example, like chances are, you all are probably like super exciting, but you don't post for example, you may not post very often. So I may see little drips here and there of what you're posting, versus a group opens you up to so many other people as well, things that you may not have thought about, for example, or maybe you did have a question on something and you forgot about it. It could be a reminder to get you to go back to it. This even brings me up to this other group feature, by the way, and it's the ability to invite a group expert. I gotta say, when I was reading through this from Facebook, I like this feature a lot. I like the fact, now granted, it's probably gonna be hard if you're like in competing groups, for example, to sway somebody over. But I do like the fact that like you can, if you kind of like take down some of those walls, like for example, they're given a yoga, Pilates, weight training like option here. I like the fact that like, hey, if you're doing something that is like generic enough, like fitness, for example, or a certain sport or things like that, maybe you do want to invite a strength trainer into your group.
Well, right. I also see this as a great extension for those of us who have live shows, who are conducting summits, who are looking for speakers, who are looking for guests, right? You can test them out. You can invite them into your group, see how they engage, see how they teach, right? Because it's very important when you either have a speaker or, you're looking for a podcast guest or a live stream guest. So how they are on, how they conduct themselves with your audience. So I think it's a great segue to invite them in and see how they fit. So I like that. I mean, I think if you're here watching and you have a show or you have a group, it's a great feature to vet people, I guess, to get to know people, to network, really.
Right. And that was part of Facebook's announcement too, is that they're starting with the fitness experts. I think it's just perhaps a smaller group that they can test with, but it is going to be searchable so that, as you're saying, Dorien, you can really search from the whole network of Facebook people who has this expertise, which leads me to ask, will Facebook start badging these experts too, based on people's content and the value of their content and their engagement? Will that add some kind of social proof as you're vetting people, as you're vetting experts to bring into your groups as well?
Yeah, that's a good question, because is it going to be based on their profile or based on their habits? Right. So I, in my profile, just Dorien Morin-van, but I have in there that I'm an organic specialist. So is that something that Facebook AI will pick up, that I'm an organic specialist, so I would get that badge? Or does it just say, well, she's in a bunch of groups, or she's an admin of a social media manager group, therefore she's an expert among social media management? I wonder what that process is like, or if it's based on your page, right? So if you have a page, it says, you're a social media expert or an agency owner, maybe that's. So it'd be very interesting to find out some of these things. Maybe they'll introduce a better bio for personal profiles.
Well, I think it will also contribute to how are you adding to the Facebook community, just like on Instagram too. That positivity, that activity actually adds to your clout as an account, whether you're a person profile page, whatever you are.
Yeah.
So
I got to say, you mentioned clout there, and I just kind of brought back some memories from years ago.
Yes.
Clout.
Oh my God. That's like 10 years ago, right? We were on clout. We're trying to get clout. Yes. Oh my gosh. That was crazy.
Was it 10 years? It was 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think 10 years ago.
I think so. Yeah.
I got to say, from a, you mentioned something, Dorien, just a second ago that it resonates with me. And it's the part where you mentioned about how Facebook's going to go through these profiles and assign these badges. I will say this. I hope that they use the third option you mentioned, which is using all the pieces that you've put out to construct that puzzle versus, oh, hey, they put that they're this in their bio, for example, because it's very, I mean, we'll use LinkedIn as an example. A lot of people fudge a lot of their LinkedIn stuff,
right.
They say they're like this, and they use, all these descriptors that make it sound really awesome, but it's, and then they throw their banner up with Fox and CBS and NBC and whatever. And you're not an expert.
Right.
You're just somebody who either paid to get on those services, or, you answered you happen to get featured in an article for something and it wasn't usually it's not an organic way.
Right. So it's kind of like what I would like to see is kind of like what's happening with LinkedIn Live, even though it's super frustrating that you have to apply, but you have to show proof that you're actually using video in order to get LinkedIn Live, right? You have to. So if it's like that, if you have to show that you're, say, I want a badge that says organic social media specialist, or social media manager, I'd have to be in groups that talk about that. I have to have conversations that talk about that. I have to have it in my bio. I have to post about it. I have to write about it. I have to maybe use a hashtag. I hope that it's all of those things, and maybe have, maybe can have a page. So I'm thinking, yes, I'm thinking that it's not just going to be what, how people can fudge it.
So I have a question on that. Do you think that should Facebook get into the certification program? Should they get into, I saw the facial expression there. Yeah, Sarah, should they get into the certification program to where somebody could actually get that badge? Or are they thinking about maybe getting into something like a LinkedIn Learning, but like Facebook Learning? Because they do have, for example, the Facebook Blueprint program for people that want to learn Facebook ads. Great program, by the way. It's free, and you only have to pay for the certification part, so i.e. the testing. So there's that option, or do they, does Facebook partner with some other company to maybe provide this? Because I would think that would then give me a reason to A, be more on Facebook, and B, I think from an education standpoint, it adds more credibility to what my skills are. And I know where both of you stand with, getting a degree in social media, for example, probably not the best thing, But what do you think?
I would hope that it's sorry, we're hearing an echo, a little strange. Hopefully if folks are hearing an echo, put it in the comments for us. But, Facebook is giving the verification checks to certain accounts as well. And so there's that. I really don't know how they would do it. I mean, they are giving news outlets, they're giving some experts some added things like Facebook Bulletin, right? There's very few people that they've allowed to have Facebook Bulletin. And I guess how would Facebook have people prove themselves as experts when there are more than how many billions of people use Facebook right now?
I don't know, 2 or 3. I mean, it's a lot. Well, here's the thing. When we're talking about group, right? They put out a new group certification, so you can become a community manager, and it's a program through Facebook. Right. And I've gone through the program several times. I have not taken the certification yet. It takes a little bit of time to study for it. But I think only about 1,000 people have that certification right now. They're community managers certified by Facebook. I think that carries some weight. And I would think that if you do that, if you go through that and you take it and you pass, I think that they should give you that badge for sure. Right now, one of the things that like, for example, in the Power Admin group, we can share, what do you call them? Oh, profile stickers. What do you call them? The
emoji.
No, on your profile, you put a little overlay.
Super fan. Oh, yeah. The frames.
The frames. So they have given us frames, that say Power Admin, those kind of things. So we can use some of that to show what we're doing, and of course, anybody can make a frame. But I think the badges that would be cool. And if it was if you did Facebook certification and it got tied to your profile, I think more people would take it. So yeah, maybe they're going to go the route with that, like they do with LinkedIn. I mean, I think the more people are willing to, take their certification, I think the more they're willing to elevate you to expert on at least Facebook stuff. But then that begs to, that there's the question, well, we're talking social media, but what if you're an expert? What if you're a nurse? What if you're a doctor? What if you're a plumber, a chiropractor? Who certifies that? So it's only a small portion of people that could get certified and be that expert through Facebook. So I'm thinking there's going to be more to it.
Right. And that sort of leads to what Christian was just saying. Do you use a third party? Do you use some kind of board certification for physicians and licensing for nurses? And I mean, there's licensing for professional coaches, for physical therapists, there's a yoga certification program too. So the question is, would Facebook do that? But I don't think we're there yet. I think right now it's the groups allowing the admins to choose who the experts are and to find someone maybe in the searchable base, a database that Facebook is putting together for experts too.
Definitely. So, and one last feature, by the way, and then let's move on to the next topic, actually, is that if you are in a Facebook, or if you have a Facebook page, they're also now having an option for you to be able to automatically invite people from your page over to your group as well. So that's another feature that's there. I think that could be useful. Again, it's minimizing some of the friction. I think that's the key thing to drive home. So it's instead of me having to, Dorien, for example, or Sarah, like, oh, they liked my Facebook page or followed it, I guess you could say. I now don't have to go and invite them necessarily. They can actually get an automatic invite. So it's a feature you'll have to turn on, by the way. It's in your settings for this new update. So you may have to update the Facebook app, and hopefully you get this feature. But basically go in, turn on automatic updates, and then there is an option for suggested invites. So you can just invite people as well manually if you want to. So
Right. And I would recommend everybody update your apps because there's a lot of fun stuff that are in the newest updates. And I've been part of a group this week too, has been saying, hey, I can't find where to do this in there. And they just haven't updated their app in probably a year. So definitely update your apps. And thanks to Bob Farnham, Facebook has 2.5 billion users. So Yeah.
Thank you for that info, Bob. And
What did I
don't remember
say? I
Bob
said two to
Two to
three. I was
three.
right on.
Yep.
It's only a couple half a billion off.
Hey, what's
know,
a few? Yeah. Okay, so we ready for topic number 2?
I think we are.
We are. So news from YouTube. So if folks haven't seen YouTube Shorts, I think it's only been available in a handful of countries lately. YouTube is expanding the Shorts functionality to Australia, New Zealand, UAE, and 26 other countries. So these are 15-second videos. Most of the Shorts that I've seen have been about 2 minutes on YouTube. So I'm not sure where this 15-second thing is coming from, except for it's TikTok, right? Which is usually the video length. So the Facebook app, the YouTube app is giving you a camera and editing function so that you can create a short with your mobile device. You can access the song catalog. Is all of this sounding familiar? All of the YouTube apps, iOS, Android, have this functionality. So when you open up the app, you're going to see that you have a little create option in that app too. So this is, I'm a big YouTube user, huge YouTube user. I watch far less television now or any other kind of video media. I watch a lot of YouTube. And so I've been seeing shorts really for the last 4 or 5 months really come up. And I've seen some of my favorite creators create these short videos, but they're usually like 90 seconds or something like that. Something a little less, less of a heavy lift to put something out to their users. I don't know how I feel about 15-second videos on YouTube. So I'll open it up to you two, how you feel about YouTube getting TikTokified.
Dorien, I'm going to give that one to you unless you want me to take it. Okay.
I mean, I'd be happy to take it, but I think it's just silly. I mean, that's not where we go there for, like I go there to learn something or to find, information. I really use it. How do I do this? We're, doing lots of do-it-yourself home projects. This weekend, we had to redo some outdoor stairs. And if you know what a stringer is, you built the stairs on the stringer. At Home Depot, Lowe's, the stringers are either 4, 5, or 6 steps. Well, we needed a stringer with 7, which meant out of a 2x12, we had to go cut it. There's a lot of math involved. So we went to YouTube and it showed us, here's a calculator. This is how you do it. You lay it out. You have to watch several ones. We figured it all out. We're outside at our piece of wood, right? Where we're cutting with our tools. It's brilliant. That's how I use YouTube. I think if a 15 or 90 second this or that, I go to Instagram or TikTok for that. I really don't go to YouTube for that, but I use it in probably different ways than other people do.
So I think that it could be useful depending on what it is. So for example, I like watching YouTube Shorts cooking videos. So by the way, that's also, where my business and my show and whatnot came from. So I watch a lot of like cooking videos and they make sense when it's like, okay, so add butter to, a bowl, for example, and then melt the butter. Like, it's not like I'm going to sit there and show you in the video, like, okay, here's how you melt the butter, for example, like, and I'm going to show the whole process. I'm going to just say, put in the butter, put in X amount of butter, then melt the butter. So I don't need to give you like this long drawn out process. And that's where I think there's a lot of value for short tutorials or things like that. I also think that it could be useful if, for example, you could take like maybe this show and we could do a couple of things. I could pull out, a vertical video of Sarah, Dorien, and myself, for example, and I could actually have in post YouTube Shorts content. I think that could be useful. That could link to the longer form video, for example, or it could be maybe a short of me asking a question. Like, for example, hey, for those of you, what do you all think about YouTube Shorts or TikTok videos? Which team are you on? You team YouTube or team TikTok? Let us know and go watch this full video where you'll see our results. For example, that's another way I could use this. But I still will say this. I go to YouTube for videos. So I mean, I don't go to TikTok, obviously, mainly for the privacy and security concerns there, but I think YouTube having this makes a lot of sense. I think the key thing, though, is going to be how they're going to present it on desktop versus mobile. That's where I think there's going to be a difference.
Right. Well, I can tell you on mobile, if you're not watching it the way they want you to watch it, there's a little alert that says rotate your phone. So it's kind of cute when if you're watching a vertical that isn't the way that they want you to watch it. I think it's interesting how YouTube has changed over the years from the 8-minute video being the sweet spot to the 12-minute video down to the 4-minute video. We've seen longtime creators like the Vlog Brothers. They stick to 4 minutes. They are under 4 minutes. They have been under 4 minutes since they started on YouTube, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. So, and now there are some videos that I'll watch that are 38 minutes long, but I'll think, oh, I'm not going to turn on the television and watch something or stream something for half an hour, but I'll watch a YouTube video. It makes absolutely no sense. So it is interesting to see how YouTube is trying these things. YouTube has stories too. I don't know if I really like the stories, but it reminds me from my creators that, they've got something new that they've posted. And that's usually where they announce that their new video is up and what it's about, because sometimes the notifications don't come through. And sometimes I don't follow all of the people that I follow on YouTube on Instagram, where I would see their story or see their posts too. So it's interesting. Dorien, tagging onto your how-to, a couple weeks ago, I was looking up how to rewire a lamp, and I found one of the most viewed videos on YouTube was completely wrong. The person was saying the color coding doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter how you rewire a lamp, which in my head didn't seem right? But a lot of people would follow that and their lamp would catch on fire, right? So fortunately, I found Wanamaker's Hardware in Massachusetts, and they had a great 2.5-minute video. So you have to wonder, where's this expertise too, right? That
reminds me of a funny story. We're going to go on a tangent here for 1 second, but that reminds me of a story. There was a case study about an online company that sold glasses and that were terrible. So everybody that ordered glasses would get them, and they were terrible. They were the wrong prescription, the wrong color, and they would get 1-star reviews, but they racked up thousands of 1-star reviews. Because they had so many reviews, they were on top of Google, and people kept ordering more. And this was like a cycle of, stop doing this. Stop ordering glasses from a company who has 4,000 or 5,000 1-star reviews. It doesn't make any sense. But it's kind of like that. People keep watching the video because it gets pushed to the top because so many people have watched it. And then they go there like, oh my gosh, this is bad. But people aren't reading the comments. So they're following, and then they might go back when the lamp catches on fire and say, "Hey, this." So it's sometimes that is what happened to content, where you just want to scream and like, "No,
I know,"
but they're leaving it up because they're getting traffic.
Yeah. Yep.
So what I want to do real quick, by the way, I just want to pull up YouTube Shorts just to kind of show you all like what this is going to look like. So here I am. This is on my phone, for example, and sorry if this actually goes into a regular video, but basically you got a couple of things. So you got the shorts feature here at the top, this whole section here that you can page between. As you can see, I have quite a few cooking videos, things like that. And then you also have the shorts tab here at the bottom as well. So if you go into that, it's going to actually play a full on shorts video. By the way, I don't want to play too much of that because I don't want to.
I just noticed something. That was a TikTok video. He had a TikTok logo in there.
Yes. You're going to see most of the shorts. There's one right in the middle there, that blue one that has a TikTok logo too. Yeah. Just like Instagram Reels, you are going to see that TikTok logo because people are recycling the content. Mm-hmm. So, and Instagram has been really clear that their AI can see that TikTok logo and they don't want it there. So I think it's important, if you're going to do these short vertical videos, what's great is that YouTube is giving you the camera and the editing ability with it. Mm-hmm. So you could produce it with your YouTube app and then bring it into TikTok and all of that, or bring it into Reels or wherever you need. But to get that clean video, I think other platforms are really going to crack down on seeing that TikTok logo.
And here's the thing. I think they should. I
They
think that every
should, yeah.
platform should crack on it, because here's the problem. And Doreen, you know about this. Like it's all about like creating an engaging experience, but you also have to put the time into it. So for example, you talked about like social media pros. Like if you want to be, if you want to be a social media manager, for example, like you want to actually like, you have to put the time in. You can't just like, oh, all of a sudden, like I'm now a social media pro because I made myself one. Like you got to actually work at it. And it's the same thing with all these videos. Like, yeah, it means that maybe you have to shoot. Like it's why when people shoot videos, they shoot like unedited basically. And then they construct their story based off the shots that they need. And then they take it and they may remix it into something else, but you got to put the work in. So it's like, start with like, it's like changing your process, I think, of making videos, for example. It's saying, you know what, instead of me trying to take one shot and like, then just use that one shot, like take shortcuts. Why don't I actually just film it correctly, which is film whatever scenes you need, create your storyboards, make your video, and then maybe come up with a second version. Here's what you're going to also learn. You're going to learn A/B split testing. You're going to learn maybe that video, for example, that I initially did that I thought was really good, didn't perform as best as the second one. So,
right. And if you frame it right, all the video editors that we have access to, the free ones or the paid ones, you can crop out that. If you filmed it horizontally, you can crop out enough so you can make a nice little short in vertical too. So,
and Bob, by the way, says he prefers landscape videos. So again, everybody's going to have a preference. I actually think this is going to go back to, you remember the Snapchat spectacles? So remember how you would start a vertical video and you'd rotate it and it would fill the screen. That's what I think is going to happen, by the way, here. It's going to go back to Snapchat spectacles.
I have a pair. That I haven't used.
We are
years.
throwing back to everything this episode, aren't we? So
I won them in a contest that came back from Social Media Marketing World. I have a pair just like that. Yeah.
Vintage.
Yeah.
I remember going to trade shows.
I don't know.
Going to trade shows in 2014 with Google Glass with my boss at an agency. So yeah, interesting.
Crazy
all right, there we go.
They still, I'm pretty sure they probably still work. I remember, I gotta say, I remember getting up at like 4 a.m. to get these.
Oh wow!
They came out with another piece of hardware this year too. I don't remember what it is.
But yes, little Snapchat speckles. So
I have a pair just like it in my drawer, and I haven't pulled it out in years. But I remember when I brought it home from the conference, my kids were jealous. They're like, "Well, how did you get that? What are you going to do with it?" Yeah, it's pretty funny.
But here's the thing: I got to say, even though you may not use these much these days, you could still use these as a video camera. Like create some different like aspects. These give you the ability to get different perspectives of things, even though they're very short, videos, for example. So, okay. So Sarah, where do we go next?
Let's go. So the next two news items, let's go pretty quickly through because we have some questions for our guests today. So first off, Twitter comment control. So this is, when I first read it, I was thinking this is kind of strange, but let's first talk about when you tweet, you can control who is allowed to reply. Everyone, people you follow, only people you mention. Now, what Twitter is doing is giving you the ability to change this after you tweet. So you can edit. Yes, I said edit in Twitter in the same sentence. You can edit your tweets. Who can reply to your tweets after you tweet it. So rather than delete your post, so let's say you put out a post, it gets a lot of replies that you don't necessarily want. What people typically have done is delete the tweet if they just don't want the conversation to go on. But now what you can do is you can edit who can reply. So it sounds like the controls are going to be the same. Everyone, people you follow, only people you mention. But it gives you this ability to do it after you tweet. So let's be clear, this is not an edit button for Twitter. This is
by the way,
just
I think they were
editing.
trolling us. Like, because they did say you can edit, like they said you could edit your replies like who can reply to your tweets. And so I do feel like they're sort of trolling people because they know that people want that silly edit button.
Well, it's not, and we don't have time for this today, but
No.
an edit button on Twitter is just not a good idea. No. It just the way that tweets spread so quickly. If you start editing, like Dorien said earlier, that she has the comment control on her Facebook group so that she can see if someone edited something that had been approved, they edit to something that's then promotional, right? So that's what can happen on Twitter very, very quickly. If they have the edit button. So Anyway, this is just, you can't edit your replies. You can't edit your tweet. You can edit who can reply to your tweets.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What do we have? Do we have another topic?
Yes, one more. It'll be very quick. Poof. Twitter fleets are fleeting. So Twitter launched this spring. We talked about it a few episodes ago. So Twitter's answer to stories, really, which was everybody's answer to Snapchat, if we remember that. Twitter has decided to cancel fleets. So, and it's pretty funny there. Do you have the original tweet up there? It says, "We're sorry," or "You're welcome." So I have to say, the Twitter people who've been writing for Twitter lately have been killing it with some of their irreverent humor, which I really like. So if you wanted to use Twitter fleets, now is your chance. You have until August 3rd, 3 weeks. So, try it, see what happens, and then go try Twitter Spaces instead. Right, try their live audio room.
This is, what's so interesting, I think, about this is just the fact that social media changes so rapidly. I mean, like, considering this just came out in the spring and they're already getting rid of it. I sort of feel like things need to get back to social media basics of getting people, people need strategies, for example. Like they have all these shiny objects, which are great, but I still think it needs to go back to look at like, for example, if I'm like a news site, I'm literally just pulling, for example, if I'm CNN, I'm pulling in somebody's, video, for example, I'm pulling in somebody's tweet, for example, that's public. Just kind of like, I mean, it's almost like you sort of need a blank canvas, like let them understand the mechanics, almost like going back, they need a certification of some sorts to understand how to actually do some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's nice, Twitter fleets, but I don't know. I didn't use it. Did you use them, Dorien, at all?
Once or twice. And
once or twice.
Covered it on the show, maybe?
Yeah.
We did cover it on the show. It was one of my first episodes, actually. And I think we all agreed that Twitter is not where we go for this story kind of content. It's where we go for that's the whole point about Twitter, is that the news comes and goes, right? So why have another thing to press on and have it horizontal where Twitter is usually vertical scroll?
Yep.
So
right. Yeah, that was another point, that when you were talking about editing editing your tweets, I really think as Twitter as a place where people just vomit their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really shows people's true colors, because how many times have we had people, had to apologize for tweets they said, or, take down tweets. And I think it's kind of the good part about Twitter, where people go to vent and to say really what they feel. And I think by giving them an edit button, it would take away that aspect of Twitter, which I think is a big thing. It's people react to news, people react to things, and it's what drives Twitter, right? It's quick interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you then can go back, I mean, at least you can delete a tweet if it's really bad, but I think it really shows more personality than some of the other places that we get, that we talk, online.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I like it for that reason. I like seeing people's wit and people's, quick thoughts. And yeah. So I think if you edit that out, then it's just going to become another social media platform. And to that effect, I just saw a video by Gary Vee this morning on LinkedIn. He's got, I don't know, thousands of videos. But he said something like, stop looking at your competition. Mm-hmm. Like social media platforms, stop looking at what other people are doing. Come up with something original.
Right.
Come up with something new and original that we might not know we want, and serve it to us, instead of copying from platform to platform all these features. Come up with something new. you know, and be unique and stand behind that, and really do some research on how people are using a platform. You know, go have interviews with your biggest users and say, you know, what are the features that you want? What are you looking for? How are you using it? How can we improve it? Go do that instead of copying something.
And that also applies to like you as an individual user as well. Like, don't like look at like what your competitors are doing, but don't be so obsessive and look at exactly what they're doing. Say, okay, they're doing this. Okay, we need to do that. Ask, like, look at your customers, because chances are your customer lens is going to be different from theirs. So like your customer, for example, may not be into all this other stuff. So you may just be using essentially Twitter Classic, which is just standard tweets, if that's where your customers are going, or your customers may not be using Twitter at all. So I don't know. I got to say, I mean, I also don't, this will be another conversation. Twitter edit button, not my favorite. I also think that because of the character account, I think that forces people to actually have to write good tweets.
Yeah.
So it makes you have to think, like, you need to understand.
Right. And then by the time they do and they press post, I think that's their true thoughts, because it's so short. You have to really think about it. And I feel like that needs to stand on its own, and it doesn't need to be edited.
And it sort of shows progression, like history. Like, okay, so if I put the first tweet out and like, maybe you look at your first tweet and it's probably going to be really bad, like bad in the sense of it's going to be too long. You probably spent like a long time writing it, and you're going to get better over time. It's like writers, like, how do you get better at blogging? You do it more consistently and you develop a process. So,
right.
Okay.
But this feature with the reply, I think, builds on the other things that Twitter is doing, and recognizing that it can be toxic, especially for marginalized people who are trying to elevate their voice. By having that control over who's replying, you can kind of shut down the trolls. And it's also Twitter, we've talked about too, is Twitter is giving the prompt, if something is really negative, that it gives you the prompt of, do you really want to post that? So I think this ability to edit who can reply is giving people a chance to still have their voice on Twitter and not get the vitriol that can sort of all the trolls piling onto them when they are trying to share their point of view.
Definitely. Okay. So we've got more news top. I think we might have a couple more. I don't know. We'll throw those in the blog post recap, by the way, socialchefs.com/daily if you want to get on the newsletter. But we're up to like our question, right? Second act essentially of the show.
Our second act. Yeah, we are gonna. Yeah, not quite so fast, because we are turning the tables today. And we're turning the tables. The guest for today is actually Christian. So Dorien and I are going to take the role of co-host now, because this is 300. This is an occasion to celebrate, right? So we want to ask you, Christian Karasevich, host of Social Chatter, how did it start? And how is it going, as our first question?
Very good question. Okay, so I'm going to put myself full screen. I'm also, by the way, the producer of this show. So I got to say how it started. Episodes were very long. They were somewhat unstructured. I put way too much, spent way too much time going through too many topics. And then how's it going now? Well, Sarah, we've gotten better at this, I think. And it's getting down from 3 hours down to, a 45-minute show. This case, I think we're at, about an hour almost here. So I think we've gotten better at that. I think the other thing is, being more deliberate about what topics we brought on. So, we've been really trying to distill down like all the information, like let's get rid of, some of those little minor like updates, for example, that we may not want to like bring up. For example, like maybe, the topic might be like, oh, it's for example, a feature that, Instagram, for example, might be testing. And so what we've done is we've started kind of like, okay, so does that really need to be the main topic? Probably not, because there's not a lot of meat to go off of. It's just like, hey, a screenshot that somebody had. So we've gotten better at that. I think we've also gotten better at having on different guests over the years. So trying to like obviously we try to have the best of the best on people that can talk social media. And so, we've been I think we've gotten better at that, and we've gotten better at the scheduling process. I think that is definitely something that is significantly improved over the years. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. So why don't we talk a little bit about the phases in this development? Because not a lot of shows have hit 300 yet.
And that's
We have some people who are knocking. I know there's a few people who've hit 100 this year. It seems to be the anniversary of the hundreds for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you started in 2015. So like you said, it started out very long. So you really went through a process of evaluating. So really how was that first step in getting over the stage fright or getting out of your own way?
That's tough, I gotta say. I mean, everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna start this project, and like for some reason, we build up so much anticipation, like that we sort of psych ourselves out. And so like when I got started, I just started doing the show. And then I've like started adding, like figuring out different ways to do things and morphing things over time. For example, and this is like, it was such a waste of time. Now that I look back at it, it was, oh, hey, we were doing this on like Blab right when they came out. And the first show, I figured out, well, how do I download these videos? So I was downloading them. So it was like I'd spend a bunch of time doing them. I'd then download them. Once I download them, then I was putting them back up to YouTube, for example, or I think it was even Facebook at the time. And so going through that process, it was a very complicated process. And so I was making it more complicated than it needed to be. And so instead, it was focusing on the content, getting it, really distilled down, and then just getting, I think the key thing was just start, but just be open though to say every, for example, put it on your calendar every 3 months, every 4 months, maybe even every month, I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to do a deep dive on what I'm doing and see how it worked. Were there things that I learned maybe from that month's episodes? Were there things that like, instead of spending so much time, like for example, the guest thing, how do you get ahead of getting the guest on? Well, it was sort of a planning process. So making some of those investments as well in the show to help make those processes easier. So I think at the beginning, it's a big hill to climb. The only way you're going to get over it is to take each step. And Dorien, even putting this in your perspective, like you run marathons, you're not going to just go out and start running a marathon today or tomorrow. But how do you get up to doing that? It's getting outside. It's just going, like the basics, going for a walk.
Going for a walk, buying the right shoes, signing up for a marathon, and plopping down money.
Yes, exactly.
Right, plopping down money for $120 pair of shoes that in 3 months have to replace. And then going out and getting a schedule and finding a partner, all of those things, they're very much like that. And then, the end goal is for me, it's not running the marathon. That's the celebration part, but it's going through all those phases and all those training hours. If I don't enjoy getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run, there are days that I don't really want to, but once I'm out there, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
That is the same with the show. If you're doing things that you resent every single week, you're not going to stick with it. Right. I listened to somebody who, coaches people on podcasts, and she said, if you come to me and you tell me I want to do a podcast, but I don't know what it's going to be about, you're not ready.
Nope.
So if you want to do a live show, but you don't know what it's going to be about, you're not ready. So you are very clear about your mission, what you wanted to do. You wanted to be a new show. You wanted to give people updates. It's a great place to come. What's going on in the world? I get these questions all the time. How do I stay updated with trends? Well, Social Chatter, there you go. It's a great place to go. So it makes sense. You knew your mission. You knew what you wanted to do. And then you just improve upon that, just like any other, strategy.
It's all about evolution. Yeah. And, again, it doesn't really matter if it's live streaming, for example, and I like the point you just made, if you don't enjoy what you do, or, for example, like you're not willing to make the commitment to it, then you're never going to be successful at it. Yep. So for example, you mentioned running. If you're not willing to get up early, for example, and go for a run, you're never going to go for one. You're going to keep saying, well, hey, I'm going to start one. I'll do one next year. Right. And so it's little things like whether it's making an investment or maybe even taking a step back, and it's putting your clothes out like the night before for your run, for example, and
setting your alarm.
Right.
Once you get out there, that's where it's oh, this actually wasn't as bad.
The hardest step on when I run, say 6 miles, the hardest step is the one that I take outside my door. because I don't know if it's going to be foggy. This morning it was super foggy. It's been raining all week. It's been raining for weeks in Vermont. And I actually had to do a 7-mile run one Saturday, and I can skip a little run, but I can't skip my long run. So I ran 7 miles in the rain. The hardest step was going out there and getting wet. Once I was wet, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
At that point, what are you going to do? You're like, at that point, you're wet. And then at that point, are you going to be like, you know what? Oh, I'm going to go inside now. No,
you're just going to run. But so, and I like that. And I mean, I like that in business, right? When you have a plan, you stick with it. But accountability, investing, all those things, once you have that lined up and you are passionate about the project, it'll happen. But yeah, it's hard to get started.
And Sarah, I want to just talk about the co-hosting situation as well in this. For example, I've had a few co-hosts over the few years, and we've we let those run their course, and at the same time though, it was always like the other great thing about having a co-host, by the way, if you're doing a show, is because it does sort of give you kind of what you mentioned, Dorien, a second ago about a partner. It gives you an accountability partner because, for example, I'm letting Sarah down if I'm like, I don't feel like showing up for this, for example, time adjustments even as well. I'll talk about that. Like I used to do this show at one point, it was like super late. Like I did it super late so that I could hit the West Coast, for example. And then at one point I was doing it super early. I think it was like 4 or 5 a.m. like every single week. And it's one of those things, but Dorien, it's the same thing you mentioned. It's a mental thing. You have to prepare yourself mentally that, you know what, if I'm going to make the commitment, it means that I got to get up and do the work.
Right.
I got to get up at whatever time that is.
Well, and your accountability partner, when you have a partner, when you have a co-host, it can be that. But when you have an audience and you've built an audience, your accountability partner is going to be your audience because they're going to expect you to come. So that's really important. I want to ask Sarah a question. Sarah, are you the first female co-host?
I don't know.
Yes, you actually
perhaps. Yeah. So it is interesting. There's certain times when I look at experiences that have come up in my life and I kind of jump into it, never thinking too much about it. And then it becomes this great experience like this. Dorien, I think you two were just messaging me saying, hey, would you do this? And I thought, I didn't think too much about it. I was like, oh, okay. But then when I started I watched some of the shows and was looking through what we were going to talk about and was thinking, I don't know about this. But then I jumped into it and I had a great time. And if we use the running thing too, I wish I was a runner. I really wish I was a runner, but my body hates running. My body loves swimming. So I play to that strength too. I know that I probably wouldn't be great just hosting a show on my own, but co-hosting it, I love sharing ideas. I like playing off of conversations. So this is where my intrinsic strength is. And I think, Christian, you and I have talked about this. Dorien, you and I may have talked about it through some mutual friends, some of these new books that are coming out about playing to your strengths, right? And I have a background in leadership development, organizational development. And there's a reason why those assessment tests, those, Myers-Briggs or whatever color or wheel or whatever it is, helps you identify what your strengths are, is so that you recognize, okay, this is a strength of mine. Let me play to that. Let me find where I can thrive in that. Or if something isn't a strength, for me, running, I wish I could run. Right. But I am training to try to learn how to run. And I know that will take more energy. Just like if I'm putting together a super detailed hashtag list, I really need to focus. I need to spend some time on that. But if I'm brainstorming something, that's really quick and easy. And I can knock that out very quickly. So, and with this show too, I know that there's some things that when we're talking about topics, I know ahead of time, I need to spend a little bit more time on that because I don't know TikTok well. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter either. So I know those things I need to study a little bit more. But if I'm talking about Facebook and Instagram, I can talk about that pretty comfortably. So,
I love what you just said about you kind of rolled into that. You're kind of like the accidental co-host. I'm an accidental runner, right? Because I started out running when my youngest, who's now 16, was a year and a half, and I just felt blah. I have 4 kids, and I just felt gross. I had not exercised, and a friend of mine said, "Why don't you come run with me?" And I was so embarrassed to say yes. For 6 weeks, I secretly ran in the dark. So then by the time she asked me a second time, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go for a 3-mile run. Cause I've been running in the dark by myself, and I didn't know how much I would like it. I'd never set out to run marathons, never set out to run half marathons, never in my life thought I could do it. So that has become a passion. So you being a co-host as accidental, you might find that there'll be a topic or something that you'll be in a year or 2 or 3. Your people are like, Sarah, you got to have your own show, and you might be like, I now know I can do it. So you can that can develop into something. But I understand too where you have that partner where you like doing stuff with other people just in order to have that accountability for sure.
Right. It's like seeing those new runners who are struggling on the running path or the sidewalks in your neighborhood. I silently cheer them on from my car saying, go, go, go. And it's like when you were talking earlier, Dorien, too, about the badges for groups, right? Your social media pro group, you have beginners there. And if they have a beginner badge, those of us who have more experience can cheer them on too. Like, you can do this. So even when we see people with maybe episode 5 of what they're starting, right, to cheer them on and give them some kudos. But also we have to recognize Christian, who has stuck with this for 6 years.
300 episodes.
300 episodes.
That's once a week, by the way. I did take a couple weeks off here and there. But again, I mean, it's like, I'm going to play off Dorien, like you talked about, like, running, and you talked about marathons, and a lot of it. I have two thoughts here, actually. First off, Sarah, I have an idea for you for a show. You could call it the accidental co-host, for example, or if you want to. So if you want to get into streaming, maybe that might be something to work on. And then Dorien, for running, like running and marathons, for example, when you put it in perspective of building shows, for example, or you put it into building a business, again, things are like, it's not a sprint. Like, you're not just gonna like, okay, I'm gonna all of a sudden, like, I got to go as fast as I can. We want to, but we got to remember, everybody starts that journey at different points. And so, it's about taking that first step. And the key thing is, it's about finding what you're passionate about, and then just taking more and more and more steps into that. Like, it's getting yourself into it to where then once you're into it, you're going to be like, you know what, this is actually worth it. This was worth my time, the effort, and all that sort of stuff. And you also have to look at like how it kind of fits in the big picture of things. Like in my case, it's mainly just brand awareness and, staying top of mind.
One of the things about marathon training is that when you start at the beginning and you say you do a 4-month program, so you start day 1 and then this is the day that you're going to do the marathon. There's going to be a lot of accountability there, but I can tell you, if you don't run 3 or at least 3 times, but preferably 5. So my sweet spot is 4 times a week. You're not going to get there. The training is not going to get you there. Yeah, you'll run 26.2 miles that day, but you're going to feel like crap, and you're going to kick yourself, and you're going to know that's not your best performance, and you're going to not have a smile on your face. So knowing what it takes, 4 times a week, 5 times a week of training, don't skip more than once a week. Don't go on a 2-week holiday and don't run. Don't do silly things. So if you stick with the course, if you have a plan and stick with the plan, you're basically guaranteed to be able to finish it once you follow a plan. So having a starting point, having an end point, and sticking with the plan. If the plan is for you to do a show every week, and that means that you have to do these show notes and you have to do your research. If you don't do the research, your show's not going to be good. And people are going to not keep watching. So you have to do all the steps that are part of this to get there. And I think you've done that really well, Christian, where you've, developed and maybe added some new steps. But every week you're prepared. Every time I've been a guest, you've given me, this is what we're talking about. These are the questions. This is the link. You've been consistent in that. And that's what you need. And if you skip those things, your guests won't show up. They won't have a good conversation. You don't have a good show. And that's what happens when people fail at running a marathon. They just didn't do the work.
Oh, absolutely. Very true.
Right. Right. And this is everything that we do every day. We all work in digital marketing, right? Content marketing. And we know that having the plan, working the plan, showing up, being accountable, evaluating what's going well and changing what isn't is something that we do in work every day. So when we're doing these things, which in some ways are for ourselves or for our building our own business brands, we need to show up for ourselves too. And we need to celebrate ourselves, right? I know we were really reluctant. How are we going to celebrate 300? Because it's not comfortable for us to be in the spotlight, right? The hardest press release that a PR professional has to write is one about yourself, right? That's the worst ones that I write too, is like, oh, I just joined whatever team. I hate writing that. I hate promoting myself. But when we do it and we put ourselves out there, there's a great community that responds and makes everything better.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do real quick, do we have a few more minutes, Dorien?
Yeah. I'm good.
Cool. So we're going to move into our third segment real quick. And again, this is also a part of the process. So like, I'm going to talk about this process real quick. So we did tool time, and basically tool time every single week was where we would bring up, at one point, I think I was covering like 3 to 5 tools, maybe.
I remember that.
And then we distilled it down to like 2. And I got to say 2 is even still too much, to where, one change that Sarah and I made was we switched over to a tool of the week. And that tool of the week this week, I'm going to pull this up here, is Jarvis. And Dorien, I want to actually turn it over to you. I want to actually have you talk about what Jarvis is.
Yeah. So
why it's important, what it can do.
Yeah. So here's the funny part. I actually just joined Jarvis about 5-6 days ago. I have done a lot more copywriting for some of my clients, and some a lot of postings, a lot more social media copy, and I do a lot of blogging. And I've been seeing a lot of different products out there. And of course, I'm targeted. I went and looked at one, and all of a sudden, you get all these different tools, sponsored Facebook. So I clicked on Jarvis, and I've been testing it for about a week. When you go into the platform, it lets you select what type of post you want to create. So the first one I did was Instagram posts. So you kind of put in keywords. It says like, what do you want to write about? So you write about like a woman, like this picture is about a woman, cooking a meal for her family. And then, it comes up with different ways to say it. And you can also put in what tone of voice, so witty, conversational, and then you can kind of teaches what you want to do. So there's the Instagram one right there. You just scroll by it, the Instagram post. So that's the one I've used. And then last night in preparation for the show, I was like, let me see what else I can use it for, because I haven't really used it. And I started doing the blogging one. And that was very interesting. So for blogging, you can go do different parts of your blog. So the one I messed around with was, I have a blog, and this is a blog that I already written. So I gave it the title. So it says, what title do you have?
Which template did you pick, by the way?
It was the introduction. It was a blog introduction paragraph.
Okay. Yeah. So
I put in the header of the blog that I'd already written, and then, the audience, and then tone of voice. And it came up with a whole paragraph. I'm like, this is actually pretty good. It's pretty much on point. So what I ended up doing with that is I'd already written the blog post and published it, but I used what it came up with to post it on social media on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And I'm very excited to go see the results, because I don't know if people know this about me, but English is my second language. And so sometimes the creative words, the in-depth writing, social media writing for me is perfect. It's usually very, top level, conversational, engaging, but, sometimes I have a client who needs that higher level, in-depth, and AI, I think, is going to help me with that. I'm really excited about it. So you can like this, to me, instead of using it as a blog post, using it to create that introductory paragraph that I can use, say on LinkedIn, on Facebook, for a blog post that I already wrote, I think is really great.
Nice.
So I'm gonna pay for this tool. I have a 7-day trial, I think, and it's not cheap, but I do enough writing that it warrants me using that. Another tool that I use for headlines uses AI as well. But I'm very excited about it. I know there's different ones out there, but I was pleasantly surprised with how it was thinking and how it was writing.
And I want to just kind of demo this real quick. So we'll put in, let's just say like the title is like digital marketing trends for 2021. Our audience could be marketers, and we're going to say we're looking for a friendly option. And then what we're doing down here is we're saying outputs. And so we're saying, for example, give us 3 of each of these is what we're saying. Right. So let's shorten that to 2 even. And we're going to just say generate AI content. So I'm just literally just going to click the button and let's just let it run. And let's see what comes up as some outputs.
Probably comes up with the paragraphs are pretty long that they see.
Look at that. So this is literally what it just gave me. So it gave me, the first paragraph and a second output as well. So, and then what I can do with this is I can take this and I can edit it. I could combine some of these thoughts, things like that. It's not going to do all the writing for you. You still have to have the idea of like, what's the topic going to be about? What is the tone that I want to, get across? There's a keyword feature where you can tell it what keywords you want. But you still have to it's not going to give you like, okay, here's the paper and you turn it in, for example.
No. For me, I know I will use it for inspiration, content ideas. The start of a sentence, I'll see something. I was like, oh, I would never have put these 4 words together. Let me use that in, a social media post or something. It just, and I've done this without AI. I've gone to Facebook, say I have to write a Father's Day post, for like 3 different clients. I'm like, I don't know how to say it 3 different ways. And I'll go to Facebook and look at last year's Father's Day posts and just see how people wrote it, right? And I'm not going to copy it. I'm going to use that as inspiration to write my own, maybe start the little paragraph with, hey dads, I saw that read really well. So I can go use that. So this is going to kind of replace that and make it a little bit easier and have it all in one spot for me to come up with some new content ideas.
And as you mentioned, just from a pricing standpoint, so like it's $29 a month for the base plan, but it does go up to $119, I think, a month. Is that right, Dorien?
Yeah, it's pretty pricey.
It's pricey, but the reason it's pricey at that point is because you get something called boss mode, basically, which gives you additional like it can read more content, understand more content. So it's twice as fast. You could say, for example, something like write a Facebook ad for my store. And then and then you give it the information that needs the inputs so it understands it. So it can then give you the outputs. So,
well, I think the whole idea about AI is that it learns too. Yes. So if you have the boss mode and you put in all your brand features and your keywords, it starts recognizing what you like, the things that you use.
Yeah.
So you should be able to improve upon, and they should be more accurate each time that they give you a description. So that is something that's good. But yeah, I'm probably going to demo it for a couple of months and see what comes out.
Definitely. And just some of the added features. So for example, the difference is like for $29 a month, you get 20,000 words versus 109, you get unlimited words. And then you get for $119. So literally for $10 more, you get the boss mode feature. You get some commands as well. So things like that, you can tell it, write a video script, for example. And I'll even use this as an example. It's not just for blogging. You could use it for social media posts. You could use it for writing titles for YouTube videos, or titles and descriptions for YouTube videos. So what's your topic you want to write about? You put that in there. It can spit out like 5 examples of a title. And then it can also create those descriptions for you. And then it's up to you to go back through it and, again, edit it down, get it actually looking how you want it versus just taking it at face value. So fantastic little tool, actually.
I have to disagree.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yes,
I've been a part of this. It's funny because this all kind of came together. It's interesting. I've been in conversations on LinkedIn with copywriters and people who work in public relations, and we haven't been a fan of the AI writers, right? I think AI in journalism started, 5 or 6 years ago when the bots were writing the little blurbs, and that's how all of these new news outlets were able to explode with basically recycling everybody else's content. The bots were basically saying, oh, so-and-so posted this original piece. Let me pull out a few of these things. We're going to post it. We're going to get the traffic, that kind of thing. I see it as a tool to help with SEO, especially helping you sort of rework things to improve your search engine results. I have a few concerns. One, it takes the humanness out of writing. And I don't think it should be used for any kind of technical expertise. It shouldn't be used in journalism. There's certain places where it really should be real humans writing real words. But I lost my train of thought here.
I agree. I agree with you.
My other concern is duplicate content, right? If you are at a certain level, like you're at the $30 a month level, are you getting similar results to other people writing about it? Because, right now, this session is about Facebook group experts, right? And I think that's in part of our descriptions. So we actually got a little trolled at the beginning of this show by some people. Yes. And so the bots find us. So are the bots also going to find, if I get the same results that Dorien gets for a blog post about Facebook group experts, is Google then going to penalize my blog post if she posts hers very similar content to what I'm going to post a few minutes later? So those are some of my concerns with it.
I think that's where the human eyes come in. Obviously, if you put in my title is going to be Facebook groups, that's not in depth enough. It has to be, I want to talk about new feature that came out on Facebook groups, and I want it to be professional, and I want the keywords to be, X, Y, Z. So that's up to you. I mean, you can personalize it, and then, I have seen things that look like they're written by bots, for sure, blog posts that I'm like, this does not read right. Nobody would say this. So it's up to you to go and edit. They can spit out all they want. You've got to even put that personality in, and you've got to, work stuff around. If you're literally using this to write a blog post and you don't do anything with it and you copy and paste, that's on you for sure. And then you'll have some of those issues. But if you use this for an opening paragraph or an inspiration or to explain something, or, use your, grab your blog information and then write a cool caption to go with a blog that is kind of in line, I totally think it's going to be a great tool for that. But I would never replace a brain.
Well, I think we're good people, right? We're good people trying to put out good content, building good communities with other good people online, right? But there's so many bad actors, and we have to compete with them. Like we talked earlier about the lamp, right? The first video that I saw on YouTube to rewire a lamp was totally wrong. And so how is more accessibility to writing going to make the bad actor competition even worse? I just put that question out there.
I know it's just going to be about the business owners, it's in every industry, this bad market is out there, buying likes, and, there's all these different things out there. It's, you have your own business practices. And if you are hiring somebody for $10 an hour or $5 an hour, and they live in the Philippines and they're using AI, you're going to get what you get. This is how you get it. If you are looking for original content and you're hiring a writer that, charges a good amount of money, you're going to get good original content. So, you usually get what you pay for. And if you don't pay people enough, they're going to start using tools like this and not really care to personalize it. So, do your own research on what it costs to get good writers and invest in copywriters. I think, maybe real copywriters and journalists don't use this tool. I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm intrigued. I'm going to keep using it. And I think I'm going to come up with some different headlines, some different styles, and, refresh some of the content that I've been pushing out.
Right. For sure. Headlines it helps with headlines. And we talked about WordTune a few months ago too. I think it's great for inspiration, as you say, Dorien.
Definitely. Yeah. And again, I mean, it's a it's an evolutionary process. So you still have to go through, like, you still have to do the work. It's good. It's going back to like what Bob said earlier. Like, you got to do the work. It's the same thing for writing. You got to do the work for the writing. You're not just gonna, okay, I'm gonna like run everything through it and poof, everything's gonna look great. It's gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect.
It's providing me with a starting point.
Yes.
Right. I do so much writing that I'll sit there and I'm like, okay, I've got 5 posts to write for this client for the week. And these are the 5 topics and these are the things. Sometimes I don't know. I might have an image, but I don't know where to start writing. Or sometimes I have a topic and I don't have an image yet. And so when I sit there and when it's just me, I have to do research somewhere. So it's going to be a good starting point for me to get some ideas, and I'll take the ideas that the bot comes up with and I will rewrite it. And I think that's how I'm going to use it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I got to say, I mean, it's something that like you can use it to improve things. Like we talked about this, like this is sort of like the theme of the show. Like we talked about Facebook group experts, but we talked about like, so like you don't just get to be an expert overnight. You got to work at it. For example, I don't just do 300 shows. That's 1 show a week. I have to work at it. So
here's the thing. The road to proficiency has all kinds of different things, right? So you start out, you're new, and then you're going to practice it and you're going to learn from your mistakes. And eventually you become competent, but proficiency is even beyond that. So it takes turns and twists, and you've got to stick with it in order to get better. I call myself a runner, even though I haven't run a marathon in 2 years. There's been months that I didn't run. I'm still a runner because I'm proficient at runner. I put my shoes on, and the first run I did was 3 miles. I know how to get through the mental part of this hurts because I've done it before. I'm proficient, right? I'm at that level of knowing how that works. So you, Christian, have found that proficiency in producing a live show. And so, but it took a lot. That was a winding road of stops and goes and this and that. And you stuck with it. You might have taken some weeks off, but that's really where competency comes in, guys. And I'm just, I'm thrilled for you. You're a live streamer and you'll be it. And people can learn all sorts of lessons from that, but sticking with it, stick-to-itiveness. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done.
So I'm going to bring us in for a landing, actually, real quick. I know we ran a little bit over for today, obviously a little bit of a special episode. So just a couple of quick notes, actually. So for those of you who want to check out the blog post, we will have a blog post recap, socialchefs.com/SC300. That'll go out over the weekend. There's also an Alexa flash briefing version if you want the literally the 7 to 10 minute version of this show. Just go to socialchefs.com/Alexa. You can listen to that on all your Amazon devices, even your iPhone. All you need to do is download the Alexa app on your phone, and you can now have access to Alexa. Pretty neat. Dorien, what is the best place for people to get in touch with you, by the way?
Okay, so LinkedIn. Pretty active on LinkedIn, okay. Dorien Morin-van. So it's easy. My business is Morin Media. It's play on words from my last name.
Very
so
nice.
At Morin Media on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere else. But LinkedIn is really the place that I'm building an audience and where I'm talking more until, of course, I'm active on Facebook as a community manager as well.
How about you, Sarah?
Well, I'm actually going to use my time to encourage everybody to send a little shout out and congratulations to Christian for episode 300. Tweet at Social Chefs, actually Social Chefs across social media. Use the hashtag Social Chatter and just send some love for this great milestone that we're at with Social Chatter number 300.
Thank you. And, I'm going to say this. So I'm at Social Chefs, but I also want to say, if you want to get in touch with Sarah, LinkedIn, by the way, I know she's really trying to build her LinkedIn network, but make sure, we want them to put a note, right, Sarah? So that way they can tell them they saw you on Social Chatter, for example.
Yep.
That way, we can help her get her network built on LinkedIn, because we also wanted to get LinkedIn Live access, by the way. And you got
it. I have it.
Good. Oh,
I
good.
got it.
Fantastic. Got to be
Nice.
essentially got to be a product of the product. So just kind of keep that in mind. But with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in for what is episode 300 of Social Chatter. Just a couple of last points here. Next Thursday, we're moving to 10 a.m. We're going to have Eddie Garrison on. Eddie does a lot of of graphics for social media. So we're going to be talking with him about that. And that's going to be on youtube.com/social chefs or facebook.com/social chefs. I want to thank both of you, by the way, for making this just an awesome episode. Thank you very much for all your time. And
thanks for having me back.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Anytime.
for coming back.
So
yeah,
awesome.
anytime.
Thank you, everyone.
All
We will
right.
see you all on a future episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.